All righty. Welcome to the spring 2026 personal finance. So hopefully you'll get a fair amount out of this class. This class is kind of unusual in terms of a college course because, I mean, maybe I've got a self-inflated importance there, but I think there's something, well, there's a lot that can basically number one, help you through college in terms of getting some credits for a course, but also in terms of getting your life kind of squared away and making things far easier on yourself. There's the easy way to go through life and the hard way, and people say, "Oh, I don't like to worry about money," and guess what? If you have that attitude, you're going to be worrying about money because you're not going to have any. It just That's just the way it works. So we'll jump into the course. Tonight's going to be we're going to talk about the syllabus, and we're going to go through the first chapter. We'll kind of jump right in. We'll look at some different aspects of it, and again, getting back to what you want to get out of this course. The good thing about this course is you can apply a lot of this towards hopefully towards your life if you're not kind of squared away in terms of financial stuff. You can hear. So one of the things I do on the side here, and you can hear old Brody in the background. She's kind of eager to get involved. I got a lot of dogs, too many dogs, an unreasonable number of dogs. But anyway, I've been doing that since 2010, so pretty much 15 years. They go back to this one girl. This is Bailey up here in the corner. Straight out of Hungary. I was in the military, did a bunch of stuff. In fact, this dog here, this was Buddha. She came, that's one of my daughters in Budapest. I also raised a bunch of horses. Not a bunch, but whatever. We usually have a new filly each year. Filly or, well, whatever, colt each year. I got a fair amount of property right at the base of Pioneer Peak here in the background, so yes, it's quite cold this week. Takes a fair amount of equipment. This is just a friend. I am happily divorced, but I got a bunch of equipment, a bunch of tractors, and we were out here doing some skijoring that day, so she's kind of shoved in the picture. I used to fly airplanes. That's kind of how well, I still do. In fact, the old F4, if you were to, whatever, really zoom in on that, you'd see my name on the back of that cockpit. I was an EWO weapon system guy on EWO on F4Gs and then also F15Es. I'm not that old, but I was lucky enough to get in on the tail end of F4s. A couple of my horses out along the river. Yak 52 I've had for a few years. This horse is fully grown now. I need to update my pictures. Again, so my property, going back to the Butte. I've got a pretty good chunk here, and I've got 338 acres down that way. This is about 100. I got 65 or so up in Chickaloon. Anyway, me and the dogs, I mean, that's kind of what we agree on is we do like land. This place was pretty rough when I took it over, and I turned it into a campground for a while to kind of displace some of the people who thought they were residents, and now it's actually pretty darn nice. So I think that's kind of a success. Another one of the dogs. This is Layla. She's sometimes you're trying to get more athletic dogs. Okay, you want to talk about personal finance, and all I'm talking about is dogs and pheasant and pigs and sheep. It all plays in. This is all part of personal finance. You're going to find if you don't have sort of a side hustle, if you've got a boring corporate job, you're going to go nuts. And so that's kind of how I got through things. And if you've got property and you're a farmer, you pay a little bit less in taxes. So sheep are the magnificent animal. I've raised a lot of different animals, everything from reindeer. I've got ducks now, obviously horse. I even had reindeer. I've had everything, but sheep are kind of my favorites because they just kind of keep to their own. They take care of themselves. I mean, here they've got some hay, but they're happy to eat whatever they find. The pigs are all free range, but they get to be a little much, and unfortunately, there's not much of a market up here. People talk a big game about supporting local farmers, but when it comes down to it, they'll buy the Costco stuff and they'll get by, and fair enough. Anyway, cool animals. I really like pigs, but and I'm a big fan of. I've got freezers of pork, so it's all good. MBA, PhD. Like I say, in the military, a lot of stuff in order to get promoted. I retired out as a lieutenant colonel, but I was primarily in Europe as well. But and then I got the PhD. I was down in Afghanistan. I was just bored to death. Afghanistan is one of those places where it's a lot of boredom, then a few moments of excitement now and then. I worked for a soulless defense contractor. It was soul crushing, horrible experience working in the corporate world. But anyway, I did a lot of stuff for them, and I actually did a little real estate for a little while. At one point, I had kind of 3 full-time jobs, which was a bit too much. I used to be full-time instructing at a UAA, but again, it's not corporate, but it's close. It's corporate adjacent. And then did a lot of business type stuff, even when I was in the military. In order to stay overseas, I did like 14 years or so in Europe. And so I got into a lot of different things in terms of different career fields to, keep things interesting. And I quit flying at a certain point, and then I started doing contracts. We were getting high-end helicopters from at the time, Ukraine and different countries there. Even partnered up with Russia there for a bit when things were better. Anyway, selling those things to down to Afghanistan. I used to have a place called Connect River Ranch. That's what they called the campground because it was a little much when I first started it. I didn't really want my name associated with it. Now it's Parker Ranch. It's my own name. And I don't do the camping out there anymore. I never aspired to pick up other people's poop and trash and stuff like that. I had some older folks doing it for me, but anyway, a campground, especially when you can camp for free, along the Connect River, which is nice. My campground was whatever. It was turning into a situation where I was supposed to be a vigilante to kind of keep things under control. That's not my gig. So anyway, this was the overall property. Anyway, you can get. It's kind of funny if you understand business. If you've got, some economic sense. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and this is kind of how I bought this original tractor property. And it was all a flood zone, but that went away. The land was sold as 78 acres, but you get it properly surveyed. All of a sudden, it's 93. So you're kind of pushing against an open door if you've got your wits about you when you're involved in business. So that's kind of a quick overview about me. But the main thing I want to impress upon you all tonight or today, whenever you're watching this on this video, is one of the basic strategies of finance. It's been referenced by, I think Einstein literally called it one of the wonders of the world, and other people have referenced it in terms of compound interest. It's basically making money. It's making interest on interest. And we'll go through that and we'll talk about it. But I'm going to give you some examples that I realize this is a bit of an eye chart, but I'll show you some different examples. But in this example, they're making 5%. In this example, they're making 8%. In this example, they're making 10%. And 10% is not impossible. It's quite easy. So in the world today, if you want to survive, basically, the people that are holding assets are doing quite well. The people who are just working day to day, they're kind of struggling. We're in what they call a K-shaped economy, where the upper parts of the economy, that leg of the K is going up, and the other strata of the economy, wages are going down, and people are really having a tough time of it. And through this course, what I'm going to try and press upon you is the need to be in that upper part of the K. I mean, you have a choice in your life. Hopefully, if you're young enough to still execute, a strategy, you're going to want to be one of the people holding assets and, earning interest and doing all that other stuff that the people on the other part of the K, the lower part of the K, are paying. I mean, there's lots of different ways, lots of different economic models, but capitalism is whatever. It's what works. It's what you could fight it throughout your life, or you could embrace it. And anyway, things will go much easier for you in life if you end up acquiring assets and hopefully getting to a point where your assets are earning more than your annual income. If you're working for somebody, and this gets back to all these little side hustles I did, if you're working for somebody, they're only going to pay you, they're not going to pay you what you're worth. If they paid you what you're worth, then they'd be losing money. They're going to pay you a little bit less. And most people want the stability of a proper job, something you're trained through college or whatever. Or maybe you're one of those people that goes independent into business. But I've found it most rewarding to kind of develop a side business, or at least a side investment, to kind of keep my sanity and not feel like I'm sort of a victim, sort of a schlub, being a slave to the wealthy out there. So anyway, but you can get there from here. If you look at these numbers, and I'll show you a blow up of this. This is just an Excel spreadsheet, so let me roll back one. This Excel spreadsheet shows somebody who might be in your situation. These are the ages out here. Now, most of you are not 18. This was developed for, a military person, where they're starting at age 18 when they enlist. But you're probably in your 20s for the average student, but you could be older, but that chart's addressed here. But anyway, the age is the column. You start contributing $5,500 per year until age 50, and then $6,500 until age 65. So if you think about that, you're going to be putting down $500 per month, which once you have a regular job, let's think that that's a goal where you're going to be able to put down $500 per month. And that could be kind of a bit of money, especially when you're younger and your income's not that high. But the fact that you put it away when you're younger means that it's going to have the most time for that compound interest to take effect. So anyway, if you put $500 a month away, and then you skip, say, the month of December because Christmas, whatever, and that will get you $5,500, right? $6,000 be every month, $500. $5,500 is $500 for 11 months. So if you do that, you start, gathering some money, building, some assets, and you're investing this. And in this case, they're doing it in the stock market. Whatever, you can pick your different investment type, but stock market's pretty good because realistically, you can get 10% without taking extraordinary risk, and there'll be up years and down years, but 10% is not that's what the average, or at least beating that average, has been since the turn of the last century. So it's not unrealistic. The value they're going to put out here is the age at age 65 with that 10% return. ROI, return on investment, that's a percentage you will have gained. And then the cost of delay. And this is what I'm talking about. If you say, you know what, I got a bunch of student loans, I want a new car, I want this, I want that, I'll start saving when I'm in my 40s or in my 30s, whatever. If you delay, it is going to penalize you severely. So let's roll forward again to this other slide. And here's what happened. So, pretty aggressive. This guy started at 18, putting $500 a month, invested a total of $273,000. But look what happens to it at age 65 because of compound interest. That's $5.3 million. You can get by on that. you could live off the interest of that. If you're still getting 10% on your return, you're living on $500,000. You'll make it. Anyway, damn near 2,000 ROI. Now, if you delay, let's say you delay till 27, your total amount at that $500 per month will get you up to 224, and you'll be at 2.2 million. Not bad, but a little less than half. So not great, but whatever. So that's why you don't want to delay. So I'm jumping in head first with this whole compound interest thing. We're going to go through and we're going to talk about all aspects of finance. We're going to talk about the syllabus. We're going to talk about the schedule. But if you take nothing away from this course other than realizing, man, at some point I heard a guy talk about compound interest and just how it was more than I thought. I mean, if I told you you're going to put away $500 a month and you're going to do that for a long time, you're going to think, wow, that's really going to generate a lot of money. That'll be a few $100,000. No, it's going to be 5.3 million. So that's what I'm trying to get you to get your head around. Now we're going to go through the chapters and stuff, but again, before we start that, I want to run through. This is the first time, so we're a bit ahead of ourselves, but that's fine because I want to, even if somebody drops this class, if they just go, oh, wow, yeah, I remember compound interest, and, my job is done. Okay, so the course, Personal Finance 2026, all my contact information, what we're going to get out of it, the course, you need the book because the book has got the assignments on it. Now, I'm not shilling for the book companies. I don't write these books. I don't do any of that. You could go out on Amazon right now and find some older edition of this Personal Finance by Madura for not a whole lot of money. So spend your money wisely. You don't need a bunch of extra stuff. You don't need... it's kind of a racket. This is kind of a test for you on personal finance. If you end up buying the Lux edition and get all these extra, my course, my lab, whatever, all these add-ons that they're kind of taking advantage of you. You can get an older edition, and we'll get through the homework. I'll send out a list of what the actual questions are, because as they change editions, page numbers are going to change, but it's still not that difficult, and we'll work through it. So, don't buy the $5 copy. There's probably something in the $20-ish range that's a reasonable edition. More current is better because, especially if you're buying it, you'll be able to resell it for a little bit more. But you, by all means, do not need to be spending hundreds of dollars on a book. A bunch of stuff that they put in here to asynchronous course, YouTube. I mean, that's what we're going to do is I will each week post the lecture, the slides that are out there. I'll also post a YouTube just like this that you can watch. And I'll post a little quick video that's not by me, that will be just something that's, something I grabbed from YouTube to covers the relevant course or relevant material, and you'll just make a little one-sentence comment. But so any of the stuff on YouTube, there is no assignment that you're going to be making comments to YouTube directly. Everything is going to be on Blackboard. The courses, everything is on Blackboard. So when you comment on a video, you don't comment down in the YouTube comments. You comment through Blackboard, and you get your little cheesy 5 points, and it's all good. And that way I know that you're engaged in the course. So, mid-course I go, well, is this student even involved in the course? And I can look down and say, oh, yeah, they're commenting, each week, and they're just writing a sentence that, yeah, that video's good, bad, whatever. And you don't have to write a book, obviously. Then there'll be homework, but the homework it's handed in as a batch assignment, and that batch is going to be handed in just prior to the midterm exam, and then again the second batch just prior to the final exam. So not a lot of problems there. So here's the grading scale. Homework is going to be 15%. Midterm on Blackboard. Participation, that's that commenting on the videos. The project that you see there, midterm project, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the final exam. So pretty straightforward. One thing that you probably, and I'm not taking it out of the thing, but kind of unpopular is this project. Because this project just consists of, well, right here it's described in your syllabus. So once we start getting into the course, you're going to kind of come up with a financial plan based upon some of the things we've talked about. And so personal finance, there's, as I mentioned, the main goal here is for you to live within your means, have a comfortable financial life, and then set money aside, basically paying yourself first, making your disciplined financial decisions, like I'm talking about putting money into that. I don't know whether it's going to be $500, but some amount of your income being put forward towards savings. And anyway, this is going to describe how you're going to do that, how you're going to, invest that money, what you're going to do with insurance, why you're going to look at, pardon me, Social Security and go, I thought my plan was just to work and not worry about it and live off Social Security. You need to realize how little money you will get if you're on Social Security. I've had people work for me who were, I wouldn't say they were desperate, but they were living off their Social Security, and they weren't in a good place. They wish they would have put some money aside, and they were under the impression that Social Security, I can tell you right now, if you retire, say, 65, 67, whatever, those numbers are probably going to be pushing out, but you're getting, maybe $2,500, $3,000 a year, or not a year, but a month in your Social Security. If you don't own your own home, what rent is. Imagine trying to live off, 28, $3,000 per month, and you're in an older state where you've got probably more medical issues. It's going to be rough. It's not going to be pleasant. So Social Security is pretty straightforward. They will let you know what you're kind of up against, and they'll be the first to tell you that you probably want to have some augmentation to that. The other thing about Social Security is it's not in the best of financial shape. We'll go more into this, but it's not like it's going to get more generous as time goes on. They're in pretty rough shape. Life insurance, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about investments. We'll talk about what you think you're going to make in your certain career field and whether that's going to work for you. We'll talk about investing, for how you're going to invest, where you're going to park the money, maybe some sort of tax deferred account, a 401k, 403b, through a savings plan. We'll describe. This isn't meant to overwhelm you. There's a lot of numbers and stuff I'm throwing around here that may seem like a lot, but don't worry about it. Don't get stressed. Most people who want to get an A in this course get an A in this course. It's not meant to be that difficult. There's not, it's not super math intensive, and because we talk about a wide variety of subjects and we kind of jump around, it would make it typically pretty hard to study for an exam. But before each exam, we do a fairly thorough review to hit on the highlights and the stuff that is going to be testable. There's not going to be a bunch of memorization of formulas and other stuff that you don't really need, because they're largely replicated with applications and other things that just we do. The world we live in now, we don't have to worry about memorizing a bunch of formulas and stuff. It's kind of useless. So, anyway, term project. The reason why people don't like this so much is because it's tailored to your situation. I've already mentioned that the typical student may be this age or that age, or, I mean, you're all individuals. You've got your own situations. Some of you want to go out and start a family. Some of you have no interest in that at all. Some of you want to work for, less money but higher quality of life, or maybe some of you found, more money with another quality of life, or some of you are gonna sort of trade your soul and go straight in for the money and just suck it up and maybe not be quite as happy with your work situation. Everybody's different. Everybody gets to make those choices. So, however you decide, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I do want you to kind of evaluate it and make sure that you go into it with your eyes open, kind of knowing what you're getting into and what it's going to be financially. Okay, instructor's expectations. Again, you can read this at your leisure. And what's left? Schedule. Each week we'll be covering a different topic. So financial plan, time value of money. We kind of jumped into that tonight when I was talking about compound interest. Tax concepts. It's the only money you get to use is the money you get to keep. So you're kind of worried about that. How to manage your money, take care of your banking, credit. You can do a lot. True wealth is generated not with your own money, but by using other people's money. Now, in order to use other people's money, you need collateral, so that comes back to assets, but we'll talk about that. Purchasing, financing a home. I love real estate, and it's a great way to do it, but it's, for most of you, it's kind of the most involved financial decision process you'll be involved in. We'll talk about insurance, midterm, spring break. We'll take that week off. Disability insurance, health insurance, kind of a rough situation, life insurance, and then we'll get more into investing, stocks, bonds, all of that, and then another review and on into the final. So that's that. Title IX stuff, disability support stuff, and the rest of it. So anyway, everything's on Blackboard. If you're, I'm not, whatever. Some people do this without watching the videos, and there's just a lot of questions that come up if they don't watch the lectures. So we'll try to stay on that. Let's get back to the PowerPoint, get a little more structure. Okay, overview of financial plan. Let's get this thing put away. So planning, spending, financing, right? Development of plan. So that's kind of the term project. Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is a huge concept. A lot of times when people say, well, I'm not able to save right now, I don't have any money, at the end of the month there's nothing left to invest, a lot of that has to do with opportunity cost. If you're spending money on one thing, you're by definition not spending it on another. It's like your time as well. If you're watching, crappy TV, you're probably not outside or reading a book or whatever. There's things that may enhance your life and other things that may not. From a personal finance perspective, whatever. I'm not going to rag on smokers, but I guess I will, because I don't smoke personally. But if you're spending whatever cigarettes go for, $10-12 a pack, it's like, oh my God, when I see somebody doing that, I mean, yeah, I'm not completely soulless. I'm like, yeah, maybe you're ruining your health, but my main issue is like, oh my God, you realize you wouldn't be driving this beater car right now if you just weren't smoking. If you got that money you're spending on cigarettes and put it into the vehicle. We all have our vices. If you're at Starbucks or whatever coffee thing, getting a triple whatever, $10 a day on that's $300 a month. I'm not saying to go without, but I'm just saying evaluate your decisions, and that's part of that becomes like a budgeting item where you look at your finances and you go, you track things, and then you realize, oh wow, I really am spending a lot of money on one particular item, and is my life being enhanced that much by that one thing? If not, maybe I could invest it and you know, enjoy life a little bit more and make life a little bit easier in the future by foregoing a particular item right now. And yeah, if you're somebody who buys a new car every 3 years, you're probably going to hate me as well, because that is new vehicles are just destructive to wealth. I mean, credit card bills, if you're paying a huge balance, I have no investment solutions that can outpace that. I mean, I'm talking about getting 10% on investments and being happy with it. And if you're paying 20% to credit card bills, yeah, you can't get there from here. So anyway, financial decisions. Every spending decision has an opportunity cost. Make informed decisions. And you may find that you're kind of interested in this stuff. I'm bored to tears with most sports. You know, I have nothing in common with basketball players or NFL guys, and I just kind of would people my age call them by their first name, I just kind of laugh. I'm like, you know, whatever. I could tell you what the price of Bitcoin is right now, but I couldn't tell you what sports scores are to save my life. And back to vehicles too. I've had some great vehicles, but I don't buy new things. I mean, I've never owned a Ferrari. I don't think so. Anyway, I've had Vipers, lots of Corvettes and stuff. Not like cheesy ones. This was in Europe. I wasn't like some gold chain guy. This was like, you know, going up to the Nürburgring and all that kind of stuff. And I think I might be getting an Aston Martin here in a while. But anyway, cars are cool. But if you're going to the dealer and you're paying that kind of depreciation, it's tough to get there from here. All right, components of financial plan: budgeting and tax planning, managing your liquidity. Liquidity means access to cash. So it's great to have, you know, assets and money and all, but if you can't reach out and pay your day-to-day bills, liquidity means access to cash to cover immediate bills. Now, you don't want too much liquidity. You want your money working for you, but you need to manage it. Financing large purchases, how that's going to be done. Assets, investing money, and planning retirement and estate. Estate means you've checked out. Retirement means you're still alive, and estate means you're going to be passing that on to your beneficiaries because you're not here. Budget planning. So, assets are what you own, liabilities are what you owe, and net worth is that, you know, resultant number. Hopefully a positive number. You know, this gets back to the thing where you see, you know, you drive by a apartment complex and you see some beautiful car out there and you go, wow, that person's wealthy. Probably not. Probably not a lot of net worth going on there. If you've got a loan on the vehicle, that's in the liability category, not the asset category. And if you're living in an apartment, that's kind of a neutral thing. You're not building any income. You're not developing an asset. So different people, yeah. And again, you know, I've never considered myself a big saver, but I'm definitely a big investor. I don't keep money. If you're parking money, you might as well just spend it. I mean, if you're holding dollar bills or T-bills or something like that, you're kind of treading water and you're sinking a bit. You've got some weights attached because of inflation. You need to get your money that's set aside and make sure that it's invested to the max extent possible. So we talked about liquidity, basically being cash. Money management, decisions on how to maintain money in liquid form, how to allocate funds. Credit management. Credit is your friend. You know, if you can manage credit, like I'll buy property sometimes, and let's say I've got loans that are down I've got a few loans that are down below 3% interest. I will not pay those off. That whole Dave Ramsey scenario, or you want to be debt free. Oh no! If I got an asset that's appreciating at a higher rate than what I'm paying on interest, I'll keep that all day. It gets more involved. We'll talk more about it, but you have to not all debt is equal. Real estate debt that's just the way it's done. Using borrowed money to buy stocks and stuff, or crypto, even worse. That's not necessarily smart. But anyway, we'll talk about having access to credit though is incredible, because having access to credit means that you don't have to have as much cash available. You can have most of your money invested, and you don't have to have, a huge cash surplus sitting around that's not doing anything for you. So money management, yep. So you always want good credit, and when you go to a bank well, typically I don't go to banks to get loans, but if you go to any kind of creditor to get a loan, the interest rate that you pay is based upon your credit worthiness. If you've got a high FICO score, you're going to be paying a lesser interest rate than the poor schlub that, was flaked on some credit or doesn't have any credit established. Having good credit's important, but using it all is probably not that wise. Anyway, we'll talk more about that as we get into investing. Loans needed for large purposes. Yeah, so, investments, college tuition, taking out a student loan for that if necessary, but again, that's going to have to be paid back, and keep in mind you don't want to go a little too high on that, because that's going to delay your investment thing. There are some cases where you work for certain places, or maybe whatever, college teacher, or not a college teacher, but a teacher out in the villages. Sometimes there's some debt forgiveness. That's cool. If you're expecting the federal government to write off all those student loans, that's more of an election ploy. I don't think that's going to happen, so I wouldn't count on that. But certain things, cars, yeah, try to take it easy with that. If it's a good rate, but don't buy more than what you need. And then houses, well, usually that's a pretty good deal, because you're controlling an asset that's appreciating. Right now, with the interest rates, with the height of them, if it's below 3%, I'd be doing it all day. But yeah, right now I'd be a little apprehensive. Anyway, we'll talk much more about loans and how to shop for them, what type to get. But anyway, the basic gist with loans is that people are very eager to loan you money when you don't need it, when you have enough assets. When you're poor, yeah, the rates are high and they're difficult to deal with. So the whole loan process is kind of weird. But anyway, I do like loans for real estate. Insurance planning, different ways to do that. Try and minimize your expenses. Health insurance it's a mess, and both sides politically they're on opposite sides, and they like it as a nice contentious issue. The worst thing for these guys would be a solution, so don't expect one coming, because it's just too valuable to get the electorate out there to vote. You can rally the troops by vilifying the insurance situation, and so maybe I'm sounding cynical here, but anyway, there are no good solutions, and I would expect one coming. Disability life insurance. Life insurance is, well, we'll talk more about these, but necessary to protect your income, but only to a certain extent. Hopefully, you'll get to a point in life where you've got enough assets where the life insurance amounts are something maybe you don't need as you get older. And by the way, they get much more expensive as you get older, so you can skip them. And then investing. So again, you want to be, there's people who earn interest and there's people who pay interest. And my goal is to get you in that upper, if there's going to be a K economy, I didn't wish that on anybody, but that's the world we live in, and I would much prefer for you guys to try and navigate your way into that upper tier of the K. We got a lot of things coming with AI, with different things coming down the economy. It's not getting easier economically. It's not going to be the end of the world, but you can strategically set yourself up to do well. Anyway, we'll talk about investments as we go. For most of you all, I'm very risk tolerant, which means, most people look at my risk profile, but it's worked. I mean, I've done all right at it, but man, for most people, they get nervous and they they sell at the bottom. The goal is to buy low, sell high, and sometimes people buy high and sell low. It's human nature. It's I don't know. It's frustrating. We'll talk more about it as we go. Retirement planning in the States. So a lot of times when you're saving money in terms of assets, they will largely go into this retirement kind of category. It's a good parking place. But you can reach out and touch those when you're still in your working years quite easily. And it's where the most favorable tax treatment exists. And so and it's often matched or bonused by your employer if you're working for a big company. So it's going to end up in your 401k, your IRA, but you can reach out there and touch it. And there's all sorts of creative things you can do. I mean, I've bought tons of real estate when I was younger, and did it through my 401ks by putting it up in a trust. A little bit more involved, but I didn't have to hire a lawyer or anything to do it. It was easily done. Not easily, but it was done. Building your own financial plan. Yep, enhance your net worth. So that net worth is getting the asset column up, exceeding the liabilities. Building your wealth. And wealth is measured in a lot of different ways. I mean, there's economic wealth, sure, but what I'm trying to impress upon you is greed can be a horrible thing, but you don't necessarily need to be greedy. But in order to live a comfortable life, you've got to, hopefully generate some wealth to take care of yourself and the people who depend upon you. And then the overall picture, the inflows and outflows. Back to a budgeting type situation. Inflows, money coming to you. Outflows, the money you spend. Budgeting balances, the income and spending, and liquidity. So you're trying to manage this. You've got a couple different buckets. And, you've got really one big bucket, and you're pouring money in one side, and you're taking money out the other side. And you need a little bit of liquidity, a little bit of money that's available to pay your bills. But the big chunk of that bucket, you want invested. And maybe not in the most liquid investments, maybe in longer term things that have some volatility that fluctuate that you may or may not want to sell every day. So anyway, tools. So back to budgeting. You start small and you end up with a larger plan. And so it's gotten quite a bit easier and especially for you all that, there's budgeting apps out there. A lot of times they want to kind of capture all your information, but they really present you with some really good, useful budgeting apps. Just keep in mind you're kind of the product here. They're trying to develop you as a customer, and they're probably going to start marketing to you. You're a pretty valuable resource as somebody who's interested in budgeting, who's interested in young and probably going to college and is going to have a career, and they're the customer that you're a valuable commodity to them. And so they're going to present you with applications and stuff that will help you do your budgeting. And oh, by the way, they benefit from trying to develop you as a customer. So lots of free stuff out there that's available to you. But just keep in mind that, you know, if it's free, that you are essentially the item that they're trying to use. So your job, your income, your cash. But it's a different world, you know. There's not just one job a lot of times. There's different income streams. And then your cash that would be down in liquidity, and then products and services. So anyway, setting up a budget, and we'll talk more about it. We'll show you some apps. Managing liquidity. A lot of times this is a big deal. You'll see a business, it's like, why did they go out of business? Well, they couldn't meet payroll. They couldn't pay the rent. You know, that it's a great concept, a great business. Everything else is going for them, but they just didn't plan their cash flow right, and they went out. Same thing can happen with your personal savings. Leasing cars, probably not. Borrow money to purchase a car, probably have to, but again, needs versus wants. If you can get by with the, you know, I get it. It's wicked cold in the winter. You got to get your job or else you'll lose it. But do you need to do it in a, you know, $150,000 pickup? Probably not. So anyway, borrow money to purchase a home. Typically, yes, not necessarily a bad thing. Anyway, ideal source. We'll address all these questions. These are just kind of open-ended at this point. Protecting your wealth. So that's why you have insurance. You know, number one, it's kind of a legal requirement when you're driving a car, but there's different aspects to insurance. There's home insurance if you're going down that route. There's just general liability insurance. So lots of different types of insurance, to include life insurance. How much cash should be used to... There's this concept of paying yourself first. When you're putting together a budget, when you say, okay, my rent's whatever, $1,000, $1,500, whatever it is, there also ought to be a category saying investing. You know, make some number, maybe $200, maybe $500, but it ought to be basically a bill that gets paid the first part of the month, so that you don't have this problem of, oh, I spent all my money and now I don't have any money left to invest. Nope, that should sort of be on autopilot. Now, maybe if you have some extra money at the end of the month, well, that might be, oh, cool, I'll go buy some Bitcoin or something like that. And believe me, I've got a bunch of crypto, and that's kind of how I've gotten that, was, you know, sometimes with when there's money available. But again, that's a long-term type thing. We'll talk about crypto at another time. But is crypto investing? I think it is now, but it wasn't always. It was a lot of speculation at the time. So, financial decisions. So it's all tying together. Your job, your income, your cash, your investing, and then retirement and estate planning. You don't know how long you're going to live. So you don't want that retirement bucket to empty out before you're done living. You know, people tend to live longer and longer all the time. You know, in a perfect world, you know, your check to the funeral home would bounce because you'd be completely out of money. But we don't have that kind of foresight, and it'd be kind of creepy if we did, because we'd be obsessing about it. So you're typically going to have more money in your retirement in a perfect world than you need. And so you also want to maybe take care of your heirs or some cause or whatever, but that goes into an estate. Notice how the financial plans are integrated. Yep. Source of cash, use of cash. There's a lot of short-term things you can do, but the basic thing is to live within your means. If you don't get, You know, don't take on a bunch of crazy car loans or other stuff and get in these, and then you've got debts and then unexpected. No, if you can live within your means and have a bit of an emergency fund that you can draw upon for other things, or at least have credit cards that are totally paid off every month, then you can kind of flex and you can deal with some of these things. But if all of a sudden, oh, I'm not going to eat unless I do one of these things, you kind of screwed up the management part. Now, again, bad things happen, especially in the medical world. Most bankruptcies are due to medical issues and not enough insurance. We'll talk about what you can do about that, but I don't have a whole lot of work on that. But outside of these emergencies, you need to be able to live within your means so that you can be set. Uses of cash, purchase products, deposit cash, interest payments. So again, gets a little repetitive. And how financial planning relates to cash flow. Yep. So I think we beat liquidity a bit. Liquidity is going to be a big issue. Opportunity cost a big issue. So this is just sort of an overview. Don't get too wrapped up. Investment decisions. Yeah, if you sit on cash and you don't invest it, you're not getting rich. Your inflation's eating you up. Inflation is the effect of let's say you have $100 today and you try to spend that $100 5 years from now. Well, if inflation's going at say 3 to 5% per year, your $100 is only going to buy about $50 worth of stuff 5-10 years from now. So you still got your $100, but the buying power of it is so diminished. It's just, so that's why hoarding money in cash is not ideal. You need to invest it. And I'm not saying speculate. I'm not saying go out and buy crazy stuff, but put it in investments that are earning more than the inflation rate. So at least you're breaking even. And I think easily, I've always been able to manage it to get more than the interest rate, more than the inflation rate. So anyway. Psychology, yeah, it's all psychology. All pricing of everything is psychology. But you need to have a plan and not be overly emotional and get too involved. You need to be pretty disciplined. There's a pretty good feedback loop. If you live within your means, you start setting money aside, and it starts gaining value, as I say. When you're earning that interest year after year and you see it starting to snowball, it'll back up your ability to save. But you got to get started. You got to get out of that death spiral if you're overspending. Assess your money. So, yeah. If you get in on large car payments, huge credit card bills, it can get rough. So they're just asking all these questions. Yeah. We can get around most of these by paying ourselves first. There's this old guy. He's got a video. I'll put it on here. That'll probably be the one for the video comment this week. But he just sits there and he moves his hands around in an awkward thing. And I think he's also trying to sell a book. But he talks about paying yourself first. And so he'll go through and describe that, what I mean about that. But it means basically, establishing your savings amount each month as a bill and as a budgeting line item that's paid when you first get your check. Or you can set this up with the mutual fund companies where it comes straight out of your check and it's invested. And so you don't have to obsess about it. You don't have to think about it. It just goes. Homework. So this homework is turned in at the end of, not the end of the course, but just prior to the midterm. I'll put a thing out there on Blackboard for you, but these will be problems out of the book. So now the big deal here is you don't need to rush out and get the book today. Just get it, in a reasonable amount of time, because you're going to need to answer these questions before we take the midterm. So it should be pretty clear. I'll also have some copies of those spreadsheets. I realize I kind of click through them near whatever. Maybe it's a bit overwhelming, but you can get in there and use those spreadsheets and look at the numbers, and it's pretty eye-watering. It's kind of beyond most people's comprehension just how compound interest works and how it accrues like it does. So that's going to be it for tonight. Most lectures won't be quite this rambling, but it's just the nature of the first week where we're kind of trying to get a bunch of stuff in and we're not focused on a specific topic. But this video will be posted out there. The lecture slides will be posted out there, and the video for comment. It'll be, if I put this one, it'll, 2-3 minute video out on YouTube. You watch it, and then you go back to Blackboard and just say, whether you agree or didn't agree, and that's it. Anyway, welcome to Personal Finance, and we'll see you next week.